Oh, there, above that.
I want to use this bowl.
Hello.
There you go. Here you go, babe. Here, you can put your chair up here with us.
Hi, ladies.
So,
Getting me some hot tea this evening. I have a little bit of a cough and it's driving me crazy, so I'm hoping the tea will take care of that while we're having class. I'll be right back. Let's see here.
Oh. There we go. Oh.
Okay, so
No.
I'm gonna start. So I see. So Emily Paolilla. Okay, we have two Emilys, so I'm glad you have your last name up there. And Sierra, Colin, Kinsey. Hi, Rita. I see Savannah and Abby. We're probably going to wait until about 6:35 to get really officially started and see how many are on here by then. We have about one more minute, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so I have 6:35, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll try to remember to keep an eye and let people in as they try to get on. So welcome to class tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about healthy environments. I do have several things I want to talk to you about before we start. So let me just start out by introducing myself to you and just telling you a little bit about myself. So my name is Dana Ferguson, and I have been with Head Start for over 20 years. So I started out there as an assistant teacher, and I went almost immediately to a lead teacher And then after about 7 years, I worked as a center manager, lead teacher, family advocate with Head Start. Then after 15 years of teaching in the classroom, I decided to be a partnership specialist. So if you're a part of La Petite, raise your hand. Nobody here is part of La Petite? Okay, we are supposed to have some La Petite ladies join us. Anyway, they have a partnership specialist, and I worked there as a partnership specialist. And basically all that means is like I was a liaison between Head Start and La Petite and also the YW. And then I actually took 3 years off from Head Start and went and taught kindergarten in the Christian school that where I go to church. And then I came back to Head Start. And so for about the last 5 years, I have been the training specialist, which has always been my passion to train. And so I really enjoy this. Are y'all able to hear me okay? Okay, just making sure. Excuse me. So I guess I've always taught for as long as I can remember. And even before I went to teach, I was a volunteer in my boys' school. So I have 3 boys. My oldest son is 32. My middle son's 31, and my baby's going to turn 30 this December. Married my high school sweetheart. We've been married 33 years. Have 6 gorgeous grandchildren, of course, 3 boys, 3 girls. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm trying to make sure nobody's trying to get in here, sorry. So I think what we'll do before we start talking about the class is we'll go around, and I would like for you to tell me a little bit about yourself. So if you would say your name, say where you work, how long you've worked with children, and then maybe just something, a little personal thing you want us to know about you. And so I'm going to tell you who I see first, so that you'll know the order, because I think probably the order you see it is totally different than the order that I see it. Okay, so let's start with Sierra. I see you first, Sierra.
Okay, can you hear me good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Sierra Clinton. I work at Mega Gymnastics. I'm our preschool gymnastics director there. I've worked with kids probably for like the last 13 years. I started out working in high school with little people and just fell in love. And I have 3 little people of my own, 2 boys and a girl, and I'm also married to my high school sweetheart. We're almost 10.
Thank you, Sierra. We're glad you're here. Okay, next I see Emily.
Hi.
Hi.
I am Emily Palillo, and I also work at Mega Gymnastics. I have been teaching preschool gymnastics there for about 3 years. That's what I started out, and this year I am assistant teaching in the preschool classroom, which is 3 and 4-year-olds. I love little kids. I have 3 of my own, 6, 4, and 1, and so it's just kind of my life right now, and I enjoy watching them learn and that part of their journey. So was there anything else to say? I also married my high school sweetheart, and we've been married for 10 years now as well. So.
Oh, awesome. Great. Thank you, Emily. Okay, I see you, Colin.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm Colin Chesney. I am a preschool teacher at UCP. I have 3-year-olds in the morning and 4-year-olds in the afternoon. I have worked with kids, oh my goodness, about 10 years, I guess. I started with the YMCA, their before and after school program. And then I was a special ed para with the school district for 7 years, and this is my 2nd year at UCP. So I worked with kids for a while. I have 1 of my own. She's 4. She goes to UCP too. She my whole life kind of revolves around 3 and 4-year-olds. So during quarantine, I was ready to get rid of my own and be with other people's 4-year-olds. And life is definitely fun. It's never boring. I think that's my favorite part about the job is there's always something going on. There's always something different. There's always a little person to make you laugh, or I just have a genuine love and passion for children.
Thank you, Colin. You summed that up well. It's never born in a preschool room.
Mm-mm. No, I had a little guy today. He wanted to know if I was a girl like his mom, and if that meant that I had a vagina like his mom does. So it's fun, and the vocabulary is interesting, and our families are very open-minded. So it's nice to kind of see a different opinions, and just they're so little, and the things that they say and the things that they want to know about make a big impact.
They do. Okay, Kinsey.
Hi, everybody. I am Kinsey Eggleston. I am the 2-year-old teacher in the mornings at UCP, and then a 4-year-old assistant teacher in the afternoons. So I've been teaching kids for almost 7 years. I actually used to work at InterServe for the last 6 and worked with Dana and then Savannah, who's on here. I have 2 little people of my own. There's one right there. And he's 1.5 and my other one's 5 and just started kindergarten. So life is quite fun at my house. And I've been married to my best friend for almost 3.5 years. So my life is pretty fun and crazy all at the same time, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Good. Thank you, Kinsey. Glad you're here. Savannah, I see you next.
Hi, I'm Savannah. I work for InterServe. I'm a lead toddler teacher. I've been working with kids for about 4 years. And kids, I just love working with kids, and it's my passion to work with kids. And yeah.
Where'd you say you worked at, Savannah?
InterServe.
That's what I was thinking. I thought I remembered seeing you at InterServe. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're in
InterServe.
which room again? Tell me again. I'm sorry.
Toddlers. I'm the lead teacher in the toddlers.
Okay, were you in the infants before?
Yes, I was in infant 2, and now I'm
Okay.
now I'm in
Yeah, I
toddler.
thought I remembered you in the infant room.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to know us to know about you?
I have no kids and I'm not married.
All right. That's
Yeah.
okay. Girl, enjoy your freedom while you got it. Okay, Abby, I see you next.
Hi, I'm Abby. I work at La Petite Academy in like the toddler room, and then sometimes I'm in the like younger than that, like 1-year-olds, I think. I have worked with kids since I was like 14. I used to work in a church nursery for a really long time. I worked there from when I was like 14 to when I was like 20, and I'm 21 now, so I worked there a long time. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I go to Missouri Western, and I'm from Nebraska.
Abby, who do you work with in your what room?
Kinsley mostly.
Okay, okay. Thank you for sharing. Rita, I see you.
Hi, I'm Rita Weber, and I work at UCP as assistant teacher with Colin in the morning and the afternoon. I've been in the child care setting for a little over 3 years. I was at McCarthy before they closed as the infant care director. And then I did a little bit when I was younger, about a year worth of state paid child care provider by myself. And I have 8 kids of my own, 5 boys, 3 girls, ages 17 to 5. I have been married for 11 years, together for 15. And I used to make fun of him when he was a kid. I was friends with his sister, and well, he was tall and like dorky looking at the time.
Oh, that's
Is that
funny.
it,
That's funny. And you have fur babies too, it sounds like.
Huh?
You have fur babies too, it sounds like.
Yes, and we actually had 3 that decided to adopt us in the past 2 months that decided that they don't have any owners.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Rita. It sounds like you have a busy household.
Oh, yes.
Uh, okay, Rebecca, I think you're driving, so I don't really want to bother you. Why don't you wait till you get where you're going, and then we'll let you tell us about you, because I don't want, are you stopped now? Okay, you look like you're still driving. We're gonna let you get where you're going, because we want you to be safe.
Okay.
And then you let me know when you get there.
I can stop right here.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm Rebecca, and I'm 22, and I work at Mega Gymnastics. I've worked there for 9 years, and this August, actually. And I am one of the rec program coordinators. And I also last year subbed full-time for Flip and Learn, which is our educational-based preschool program, and fell in love with it. And now I just finished my Missouri state certification to become a full-time sub for the district. And yeah, I think that's it. I got done coaching at 6:30, so I don't really know what else I'm supposed to say.
Oh, well, that was kind of it. We were just saying, introducing ourselves with our name, where we worked, how long we've been with children, and just something personal. So I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. And
did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, thank you. We're glad to have you join us. So we have 3 ladies from Mega and 3 from UCP. It sounds like, and then we have InterServe and La Petite. La Petite's supposed to have a few more joining us, but I think they're having some trouble with access, having computers. They're supposed to get that taken care of. So I do have a few things I want to go over with you tonight. Okay, so the whole picking up of the books thing, there's been a lot of confusion even for me, because they said we're closed, and they said we're open, and they said we're closed. And so anyway, CAP is closed, but I contacted my director to see how she wanted me to handle this. And she said to have you set up a time with our admin assistant as to when you could pick up books. So I did post in Edmodo. I posted her name and her phone number and her email. So you can contact her any of those ways. Her name is Kayla Marmod. And so she has your books. Now, she does just have this book. So you're either going to have a green one or a yellow one, depending on if you are 3 to 5 or 0 to 3. But I gave her the information that you gave me, and so she has that information. Now, it's up to you. My understanding is that these books are on back order and that they should be in within 2 weeks. If you don't want to make 2 trips down there, I understand that. So if you want to wait 2 weeks and see if they're both in, you can. That's up to you. Your first assignment, I don't believe, is due until November 7th. We're going to go over that here in a little bit. So if you feel like you're not going to feel too pressed for time and you want to wait, that's fine. But if you feel like you want to go ahead and get this book, because this book has most of your information. So I feel like, so this book is very much the overview. What this one does is it breaks up your competency statement categories more in detail. So in the green book, you're going to get kind of an overview of healthy, where in this one, you're going to get quite a few pages on healthy. So it's just going to give you more information when you're writing your papers. But the green one and the yellow one are going to tell you all about your different competency statements and all about your different resource collection pieces. So it's up to you if you want to go ahead and get that book, or if you want to wait 2 weeks. I don't care. I don't know that I can guarantee that that book will be in 2 weeks. They said that it's on back order and they're hoping that it will be, but you know how things are nowadays with COVID. Everything changes from day to day, so it's up to you. I will say at this point, the first assignment is still going to be due on the 7th. So if it's going to stress you out the wait, I would suggest you go ahead and get your book. Trying to think here really quick. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to just have to struggle through this cough. So just, and because it's not a big secret and I don't really care, I am recovering from COVID. You're supposed to have it like, supposed to be like the worst between day 5 and day 8. So I am on day 13, maybe day 12. And I really do feel good. I feel fine. I feel perfectly fine, except for the cough that drives me crazy. And this is all twisted up. Hold on. But I don't know how many of you have experienced it or have someone you know that experienced it. But for me, it was never scary. It didn't ever get scary. I have lost my sense of smell. They say that I come back. That's a weird thing. I did not lose all my sense of taste. I did have crazy headaches for a couple days, but they were manageable with ibuprofen. I did not get a fever. I did not get a queasy stomach. I'm trying to think, just so that, you know, I just don't like people to live in fear. I think we should be cautious. I think we should be careful. But for me, it really was not ever scary. And I feel like I'm almost fully recovered. So, but if you can put up with my cough, hopefully it will be gone soon. Anyway, I'm not trying to make light of it in any way. I just also don't want to put, if I can help people to feel a little bit encouraged about things, I'm going to, because, you know, it's crazy enough as it is right now, everything. Okay, so if you have not had a chance to go into Edmodo and view the PowerPoints, I really want you to do that. Let me share my screen with you really quick. And I'm horrible about having a zillion things open, so hold on. I can get to it. I got to get that thing out of my way. Okay, so I have a welcome video. I'm not super concerned about you watching that, but there's probably a little information in there. I don't even remember what I said in there. This CDA overview, if you haven't done that, you really need to do that, because that's going to really show me that you watched these PowerPoints. And so there's two right here, this one and this one. And those really detail what you need to know to get your CDA. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go over it with you again, but I really would like very much for you to watch that and answer those questions if you have not already done that. So for one thing that happens every year I tell the students there are 8 competencies, and every year I have students turn in only 6. And it's because they don't really follow along in their book like they should, and they don't view these PowerPoints, and they just don't, I guess, retain that. So I'm going to say it several times because I want you to make sure that you remember that. You cannot get your CDA if you do not have all 8 competency statements written. So I know that most of you do not have your books with you tonight, and that is okay. And we'll go over this again when you do have your books, probably 2 or 3 times, but I want to kind of show this to you, okay, to get you, I think it's just natural that the more that you hear about something, the more it makes sense to you. And while the CDA process is a fairly simple process, it's not always easy in the sense that you have to make time to accomplish some of it. And sometimes, for whatever reason, the way that it's formatted in this book, it can be confusing. But I am here to support. I am usually pretty available. I really am. I try to get back to people on emails as quickly as I can. Now, I don't work Fridays, okay? So if you email me on Friday, you may not hear from me until Monday, just so you're aware that I'm not ignoring you. But if you email me Monday through Thursday, I'm usually going to respond that same day. Or if it's late in the evening, I'll respond that next day, okay? I don't mind getting text messages, but just be aware that if you text me after hours, I may not answer until the next morning, okay? Just depends what I'm doing, because that is my home time, my family time. But I don't mind getting the text messages. So if you need to do that, that's fine. Okay, so when you go into your green or yellow book, the first thing it's going to do is tell you your requirements, okay? So you're required to have a high school education or a GED. And then you have to be working. You know what I just noticed? This says as a lead teacher, but that's never been a requirement when it's happened. But anyway, of at least 8 children. But you do want to have a classroom with at least 8 children that you can be observed in. So right here it tells you the 8 subject areas. Now it's really important for you to realize this. This is page 10 and 11 of this book. This is the only page that lists all 8. When you go into this, all 8 are not listed. And when you go to, there's another page in here I'm going to show you about the kind of details, the competency statements, it only lists 6. I don't know why they did it that way. It confuses everybody. That's why everyone always thinks there's only 6 and there's actually 8 competency statements. So again, it lists them here on page 10 and page 11. It also tells you here that you have to have 480 hours of work experience. Now, if all of you are working at least 20 hours a week, you're going to be fine. By the time we're done with this, you're going to have 480 hours. It's not going to be a problem. You also have to do what's called the family questionnaires, and those are found at the back of your book. I don't know if this book still has them in them because I've used these books over and over again. Oh, I do, yay. Okay, at the back of the book, it says family questionnaire. All these pages are perforated. So you tear that out if you choose, or just make a copy, front and back. You make enough copies for every family of the children in your care. So if you have a classroom of 8 children, you have to get back more than half of those. So you have to get back at least 5, right? So if you have a classroom of 18 children, you have to get more than half back. So you have to get back at least 10. Half is not okay. You have to have more than half. And I always suggest that as soon as you get your book, you go ahead and get those sent out. Okay, so you have to have the family questionnaire. So I'm just following along here, and it's telling you. And then you, in your professional portfolio, so that's the book that we'll put together, that when your observer comes, they will look through your portfolio, and then they will do your observation. If your portfolio is not put together correctly, they will not do your observation. And so you don't want to set up and pay for your observation and have your observer come out and then them say, sorry, I can't do this today. Now they'll reschedule with you, but it's kind of hard, especially in this COVID era, to get an observer to come and, you know, so you may have to wait a while. Now, I will tell you, I am an observer. I only observe limited amounts of my students, only because I cannot be on the clock and observe you. I have to clock out. So I either have to take PTO, which I could go through really quickly if I observed everybody, or I have to go on a Friday, which I don't mind giving up some Fridays, but Fridays are my grandkids' days, so I don't give them up very much. So just so you're aware, I don't typically observe everyone. I usually will say I'll do like 3, maybe 4, and it's first come, first serve. Now, Lynn out at La Petite is also an observer, and we have a couple other ladies. And I will tell you this, all of them are great. You're not going to have a problem passing this as long as you are kind to children and following the practices that we talk about in this class. You're not going to have anything to worry about with your observation, I promise you. And in fact, the actual observation is in the back of this book. Every single thing that is observed is in here. This is the actual observation. In fact, some observers like Lynn, when she comes, she asks you to take that out of your book and give that to her, and she uses that. Some people will pre-print it off, but some people will do like Lynn does, and they'll do it right out of the book. So you can look at that book, and you can check off everything and make sure you have everything in order before they come. Okay? So there's no surprises with that about what's going to be observed. And so in your portfolio, you're going to have a cover sheet, which I know that's torn out of here, so I can't show you that, but we can go over it when you get your books. You're also going to have a summary of your CDA education. So whenever we do these classes, probably what's going to happen, so typically we would always meet in person and you would get a certificate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep record of attendance, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to send a certificate out to you by email each time or if I'm going to send them all out at once at the end. But you will get them all before we're done, okay? So you'll get a certificate for every session that you attend, and it will go in your portfolio. With your questionnaires, it will go in there. And then you will also put in your 8 reflective statements. I don't know why, but this says 6, but I'm just telling you that if you don't have 8 in your portfolio, they won't pass you. But your 8 reflective statements plus your resource collection, which we'll review in a minute, and then you have to have your professional philosophy statement, which is basically what you believe a teacher should be and how they should teach. Okay, so then when you go to page 14, this starts your resource collection. So when you look on your, okay, I posted the syllabus. Okay, let me pull it up really quick here. I'll share my screen again and pull that up so that you guys can see. I want there to be as little confusion as possible. Okay, so when you see here like RC1, 1 through 3, RC4, 1 through 4, RC5, these do not go in order. Now there's a reason they don't go in order, and that is because of the ELS classes, the early learning series, and we have special speakers coming in for them on special topics, and they were available on certain days, so it kind of went out of order. But I'm going to show you how to know where these are, okay? So RC1, 1 through 3 on there. Here's RC1, 1, 2, 3, okay? So on November 9th, you have RC1, all 3 pieces due. And what those, I'm not going to go through all these with you, but I'm just giving you an example today. This is a copy of your CPR first aid, a copy of a weekly menu, and a copy of a weekly lesson plan. All 3 of those are due when your competency 1 statement is due. Now, what I want you to notice about competency 1 on this syllabus, it says safe environment, healthy environment, learning environment. Tonight, you're getting healthy environment. Your next class is an early learning series class with Leah Parker, and she's going to do safe for you. And then you have learning environment. I don't remember what night, but it will be before the 9th, and all that's due. Now, when you go in here, when you turn the page, it starts talking about your competency statements. They're called CS1, CS2, CS3, whatever. Your statement, CS1, has to be 450 words. Every statement needs to be 450 words. Within those statements, some of them have different subtopics. For example, CS1, if you look here on the screen, competency statement 1 includes safe, healthy, and learning, right? All together, those 3 need to be 450 words. So you could write 150 words on safe, 150 on healthy, 150 on learning, and you have your 450 words. Does that make sense to you? Okay, if you have any questions as I'm going through this, please chime in and ask, because I know it can seem confusing or overwhelming, and I don't want it to be. But if you, and when this class is over, if you go back and you're like, I don't remember what she said about that, go ahead and email me, text me, whatever. But I want you to look down to the next assignment due on 11/23/20. It says competency statement 4, and it just says families. So that one only has 1 topic, families. So you have to write about families 450 words. Okay, so does that make sense? Every statement needs to be 450 words. Some of them are going to have subtopics, like more than one topic, and then some are only going to have one topic, but all together, each statement has to be 450 words. Okay? Now, one thing about the other thing you need to notice, so on competency statement 1, it tells you right here what to write. It tells you how to describe how your teaching practices meet the standard. So that's going to be the 450 words. Now, it also wants you to write a paragraph on these 3 things right here, CS1A, CS1B, CS1C. This is not part of your 450 words. This is separate. But these are simple. These are not difficult. It says, reflect on the sample menu. So the menu that you choose to put in your portfolio, you're going to reflect on it. And it says, if you design the menu, how does it reflect your commitment to children's nutritional needs? Now, probably none of you are going to design the menu. So you're going to say, I didn't design the menu. And then it says, if you didn't design it, what are its strengths or what would you change? And that's what you'll reflect on. You'll just write what you like about it and what you would change about it. And that does not have to be a certain amount of words. That can just be any amount of words. So it can be 2 sentences, okay? So don't stress and think all these have to be 150 words. They do not. This is your safe, healthy learning, 450 words. These are just answering the questions, or reflective questions, okay? But pay attention, because almost every competency state has some of these reflective thought things they want you to add, okay? All right. So that's kind of a lot to take in, I know, for tonight. That's where I'm going to stop as far as the instructional piece with the CDA. So any questions about that right now? I know, Rita, you had emailed. Did I answer all of them?
Yes, you did, Dana. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And again, like I said, if, you know, in a couple weeks, you get your books and you're like, okay, I don't remember what you said. This is confusing to me. Let me know, okay? And we'll go over it again at the next class or whatever. And don't be afraid to ask, or don't feel like you're stupid, okay? Because you're not. There's no stupid questions. And every class, people get confused. Every class, okay? So it's not going to be just you, and it's not going to be just this class, okay? And again, I want you to know that I am here to help you with it. I want you to be successful. I want you to do this. The only way you're not going to be successful is if you don't turn in your assignments. Because as long as you turn them in, I'm going to help you with them. If there's something missing or not, I'm going to let you know that, okay? I want you to be successful. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again and bring up the PowerPoint for tonight. Okay. Before we actually get into this PowerPoint, there is another thing I would like to do. I'm going to stop sharing again for a second, just because I can see your faces. I think it's really important that we create an environment of safety here. Sometimes school can be stressful, and this is all new, okay? So we're all in different environments doing different things. Some of us have children at home, some of us don't. You know, it's a whole new thing, this whole virtual thing. And so I think it would be helpful for us if we just talked about a few things, like what is going to help us to feel safe, and also what are some agreements that we can make that everyone feels respected. So I'm looking for some input. Any thoughts?
I'll go.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing for me that would be helpful and supportive for me is just to know, like, that it is an open environment. So like questions or I I don't know, just like having a question and like not feeling stupid to ask. Like maybe I just don't understand, or like maybe I just need help from even like a peer or somebody, not necessarily from an instructor. So I think just having an open mind when people are talking and giving input would be helpful.
I agree. Anything else?
I love that you said that you're here to help us and that you want us to succeed.
I really do. I mean, you guys are preparing the next generation, and there's a lot of, it's going to be, I think it's getting harder in so many ways, you know, for our kids, and they need some teachers that really are, that care. So, yeah. Anything else? Okay, so one of the things I will say that I need for you to do, I need for you to always have your camera on, unless like you have like something embarrassing that's happening and you're like not wanting that to be seen or something. I totally get that. I do want you to feel free that if you have to get up and use the bathroom, go, because I'm going to. I'm always drinking water, and believe me, I'll probably have to go at least once during the 2 hours. So, you know, you're in your home, you got to use the bathroom, go to the bathroom. We have children, and so it's just, you know, they need us. That's hard for them to understand. If my grandkids were here, this would never, ever in a million years work. So I understand that, you know, they have needs and they might need mommy for a minute or whatever. And so just doing your best to be present as much as you can. We're not going to have unrealistic expectations. So I guess I would say too, even if, and I have not noticed even one person, even as of yet, on their phone, I guess I would ask that we all, myself included, try to be respectful with our phones. If we absolutely need to take a call, to make sure we're on mute when we take that, but you know, to try not to be on our phones unnecessarily. That would always, that's helpful. It makes me feel like you care about what we're learning. If we're not excuse me, on there constantly. And I say that as my son has been texting me 3 times here, and I haven't answered him yet, but he'll be okay. Okay, so anything else? Anybody feels like they really want to share something, it would help them to feel better about this class? Okay, so we're short tonight about, let's see, there's 9 of us here. There's supposed to be 16. I don't know if some of them have decided not to take it. I know that there's a few that are having trouble with, like I said, computers. So we'll see. There may be more join us eventually. I will say this. It is not beneficial to you to miss classes. I'm hoping to be able to record these, and so that if something happens where you really cannot attend, that you could make up the class easily, because every class does have to be made up. And the reason why is because you have to have the 120 hours in. I try with the hours that I give you and with ELS, and then with your homework, that kind of totals up to the 120 hours, or we try to get as close to that as we can. But I mean, 2 hours makes a difference. So when you miss, my hope is to be able to post the recorded session, and then that you could make it up. But we're going to see how that goes. Okay, all right, let's get back to the screen. Okay, we're going to do something kind of just as an icebreaker to begin with. I know you're like, are we ever going to start it? Well, yeah, we are. But so what I want to do here is have a little bit of a conversation about where nothing's right and nothing's wrong. It's just a conversation. It's to help us to get to know one another, to feel safe, and just to kind of have a conversation, okay? So because of crazy COVID, I thought I would make a question that kind of is maybe relative to that. So there's going to be 2 choices. So number 1, if you would rather lose your sense of taste, you're going to put up a 1. If you would rather lose your sense of smell, you're going to put up a 2. Okay? All right, so if you would rather lose your sense of, I forgot what I said, smell, number 1. If smell's number 1, if you would rather lose your sense of smell, put up a 1. Okay, so Sierra, Colin, Kinsey, Savannah, Emily, and Rebecca. Okay. All right, so then if you'd rather lose your sense of taste, put up the 2. Make sure I got them right. All right, so Rita and Abby are saying smell. Does anyone want to share why they chose what they chose?
I'm a really picky eater, so if I lost my sense of taste, my friends would stop picking on me for being such a picky eater because it wouldn't bother me anymore.
Oh, if you're getting picked on for it, you are a picky eater. It bothers you, huh?
I'm opposite. I love to eat. I love food. We work with children, with little children that are sometimes still in pull-ups, and I would much rather not smell and be able to eat my cheeseburger than
That's so true about that part, yes. Anybody else want to share why they picked what they picked? No, there's no right or wrong answer.
I was with Colin. I was thinking I love food, but I would rather not smell yucky, nasty diapers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. This is probably TMI. Okay, I'm already going to start this, but it's like my husband has let out gas the last 2 days and it hasn't bothered me once because I haven't smelled it. First time he's never been yelled at over it. Thought he's not in here. He'd have a cow. Was you going to say something, Kinsey? Did I see you?
Yeah, I would much rather lose my sense of smell because I wouldn't be able to smell my husband's work shoes when he came home from work every night like I have to right now. So the man's got athlete's foot really, really bad.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's miserable. And you know, having lost my sense of smell, I'm still not certain which I'd rather. It's so interesting and weird. So I'm a very big essential oil person. I don't know how many of you are familiar with essential oils, but they're extremely strong. I can literally put it under my nose and smell nothing, absolutely nothing. The interesting thing is that all these other senses are heightened, so I can like feel it tingling because they're very strong if you're used to them. So I can feel like this tingling, but I can't smell anything. And it is really odd and weird. And then, you know, sometimes I thought, well, maybe I wouldn't mind losing my sense of taste because then maybe I'd lose a couple pounds I would want to eat. But, you know, honestly, I don't know which one I'd rather lose because I didn't really fully lose my sense of taste. Having lost the smell is really weird. So I don't know, but it's very strange how you feel all these different things in your nose that I really didn't notice until I lost my smell. So anyway, say to come back. Did anyone else want to share? Okay, all right, let's move on. Okay, our objectives tonight are to keep children healthy by promoting wellness, by responding appropriately, by providing nutritious meals, by teaching good health practices, including diapering, toileting, and hand washing, and by identifying and reporting child abuse and neglect. So there are 3 parts to promoting wellness in the environment. So clean environments, so that's like your walls, your floors, your mats, your surfaces, clean equipment, and clean materials. And you know, in this day and age, we're even so much more aware of this and how important it is. So when we think about promoting wellness in the environment, now sometimes these are things you do not have control over, but there's still things that are good to be aware of because sometimes there's things we can think of that can make a difference and help in some way. So when we think about having well-ventilated rooms, we usually don't have any control over that. We go into rooms and the windows are what they are. Some of them open, some of them don't. You know, some of them are safe to open, some of them are not. And so that's kind of something that's very hard to control. There are things like, you know, years ago, I worked in the Horace Mann Center. Probably most of you are not familiar with that at all, but it's in this old school building over on North 18th and Angelique. And we were in the basement. Well, there were no windows in our room, and there was always like this musty smell, like old schools with the cement walls. But one of the things that we were able to do was to bring a humidifier into the room. So there's sometimes some things that can be done depending on funding and your directors. You also want to have well-lit classrooms. You want them to be safe. We also want to maintain a comfortable room temperature around 70 degrees. So it should not ever be less than 68 degrees or higher than 85 degrees. And I always try to really encourage teachers to think about their children and their comfort. While you want to be comfortable, and it is very important for the teacher to be comfortable, it really is. You're going to be a crabby teacher if you're sweaty. But we also don't want to keep the room so cold that the baby's hands and toes are freezing, right? I used to work across from two teachers that every time I went in their room, it felt like an ice box and it was dark. And I thought, I don't think this is good for the children. So we want to think about the children. And then as far as meeting license requirements per square foot, if you're licensed, that's going to happen. Then when we think about also continuing to promote wellness in the center, we want to make sure we're using a 3-step sanitizing of all surfaces. So hopefully y'all are familiar with this. It's the wash, rinse, bleach. Is everyone familiar with the bleach test strips on how to create the appropriate bleach solution? Okay, very good. And you always want to make sure that it matches that. I think it's the second to last. That really is very, very effective in killing all the germs. We don't need the bleach to be dark purple. In fact, that's unsafe for our children to be breathing all of those chemicals. So we want to use the very minimum that it says to use. But we want to make sure we're sanitizing all of our surfaces on a regular basis, not just our tables and chairs, high chairs and changing tables, but we need to think about things like doorknobs and light switches and things like that. When I think about tables and chairs, so I have been in centers before where the chairs the children sit in, I did not want to touch. They were that disgusting. And it really literally only takes, 2-3 minutes to wipe down the chairs real quick, spray them, let them sit for a minute, walk over and wipe them off. The food and stuff comes off easier when it's fresh, and I remember being in centers that I was like, I would not touch these chairs or sit in these chairs. And we think about the collection of germs on this. We need to be washing off the chairs when we wipe off the tables for the children as well. We want to sanitize tables at the beginning and end of each day, as well as between each activity that it's used for. So if you are having a small group time at the table, it needs to be wiped down after that, because you guys know as well as I do that children are sneezing on the table when they're over there, they're wiping their nose on the table. We just want to keep it as sanitary as we can. I am truly for building the immune system. So I am not one of those crazy people that think you go behind everyone and wipe immediately. I really think that we need exposure to germs within reason. But we also do want to, practice. We want to do best practice. And that is one thing I do want to say here too, as we go along. I want you to be aware, the things that I tell you are best practice. And when we get into the education pieces, I'm going to pretty much follow the high scope curriculum, because it is research based and it's best practice. So when you hear me talk about some things that maybe your center is not promoting, it's not necessarily that your center isn't doing what they should, but I am just going to tell you about best practice, okay? All right, so you want to sanitize doors, handles, and cabinets daily. The diaper area should be sanitized after every change. We hopefully all know that. And we want to wash both the adult and the child's hands after changing. So how many of you actually wash the child's hands after you change them as well as your own? Okay, so a lot of people aren't aware that you should, or even that you can, even babies. So hopefully that you have a hand washing sink very close, and you can just either put the baby on their belly and reach their hands under, or if not, you can get them over and put them in front of you. But really, we should start teaching them hand washing at a very young age as well and get them used to that. That's really good for them. Actually, it's pretty soothing and they enjoy it once you do it. But you know as well as I do, I mean, how many times do they touch themselves sometimes while you're changing them? So we want to make sure that we are washing their hands as well as our own. Individual cubbies should be available to store personal items of children. Again, that's for sanitary purposes. We want to discard disposable cups immediately after use and sanitize reusable ones daily. We should mark and keep them separate. We should be emptying trash cans regularly. And I think this is going to vary. Obviously, you're going to empty them at the end of every day. But you know, if you get a lot of stinky diapers in there, probably needs to be done in the middle of the day as well. I know La Petite does theirs twice a day. They do them in the at noon and then at the end of the day, which I think is an excellent practice, honestly. Okay, bathrooms should be cleaned daily and as needed. So let me ask you all this. How many of you, it's your job to clean the bathrooms? Wow, y'all have, okay, so serious. But the rest of you have like maintenance that comes in and does it, or what? Oh, wow, you guys are blessed. Unfortunately, a lot of child care centers actually have to do that on their own. And so, wow, that's awesome that all of you don't have to do that. For those of you that do, sorry, but at least you know it's getting clean, right? But they should be done clean daily and even as needed. So even those of you who have maintenance that does it, you know, if you have an accident in that bathroom, hopefully you're going in and cleaning it, or you're able to call your maintenance to have it done. It's, you know, it's so nasty not to be checking the bathrooms after every child comes out. We really need to be doing that. And so, of course, we want to teach our children to use, to wash their hands when they come out of the bathroom. Floors should be swept and mopped throughout the day in the rooms as necessary, especially after meals or bodily fluid exposure. Mats in the room should be wiped down daily. Vacuuming should be done daily, and we should spot clean carpets as needed. They really recommend that you sanitize the carpets twice a year, and of course after bodily fluid exposure. I really think twice a year is not enough, but I realize that the reality of time to do that sometimes only allows us that. We need to be washing bedding weekly or when soiled. Cots and mattresses should be wiped down and sanitized when bedding is changed and when necessary. So I know a lot of this you probably already know. A lot of this is monotonous, and truthfully, this healthy piece is not my favorite one. We'll get into more that are a lot more interesting, but we have to lay the basics of a safe and healthy environment. So if you just kind of endure this with me tonight, I'll try not to make it too boring. We'll try to do a few things out here in a little bit that won't be so boring. So we want to sanitize the mouth toys daily. And we should be removing them from the play area when the child that has mouthed it is finished playing with it. So you want to have a container labeled for dirty toys available in the classroom. So you see here this yuck bucket. This is one, I took this picture from one of our early Head Start rooms. They use this. So let me say this. I think it's really important that we understand that for children 0 to 3, it is developmentally appropriate for them to be putting everything in their mouth. And we should not be saying, take that out of your mouth, take that out of your mouth, take that out of your mouth. That's not appropriate for us for 0 to 3. It is necessary for brain development for children to use their mouths and to be oral with objects. That's how they experience them at young ages. That's part of their development. And when we deny them that, we are actually slowing down some of their brain development. So I think it's really important that we understand that. Now, that being said, when a child is playing with a toy and has mauled it all over, when they're done, we do want to take that toy before another child gets a hold of it and we want to put it away. But we really want to make sure that that child is done playing with it. You know, we don't want to just snatch it away every time they put it in their mouth, or if they place it down for a minute. That's what we really need to be close and present so that we know if that child is really done, and also to protect that toy from going into another child's mouth. So I think that's something we need to be aware of. It's very much developmentally appropriate. And then, but when we go back to cleaning, we want to make sure that we're spraying the toys nightly with a bleach solution. We should be sanitizing toys weekly with a 3-step solution. Now, in reality, that's really difficult. I know that. We don't always have time to do that. That's an ideal situation. But what we can do is we can spray them down nightly with the bleach solution. We should also be washing the dress-up clothes on a regular basis. Weekly is what's recommended, or as necessary. So like whenever a communicable disease has been identified in the classroom or center, you definitely need to take and wash the clothes. You know, if someone has lice, if someone has hand, foot, and mouth, we need to take those out and wash them. We also want to store toothbrushes to air dry without touching one another. Are any of you brushing teeth at this time in your classrooms? Okay, I figured probably with COVID that nobody was, but just in case. Okay, so when we think about going outdoors in the environment, so I'd like to provide an outdoor checklist. I don't have one for you to view tonight, but it's really important for the playground to be checked every day. In the morning when staff gets to work, there should be a designated person who goes out and checks the playground. So do all of you know, do you have a staff person who goes out and checks your playground? I'm just kind of like, if you do have someone, just. Okay, so, and even if you do have someone, it's really important when you take your children out that you kind of do a once over, you kind of glance over the playground. So we have had crazy things found on our playgrounds. We've found needles, we've found used condoms, we've found human feces, we've found a gun. We've actually found 2 children having intercourse on our playground in a playhouse. You name it, we've found it on our playground. When you think about any one of those things that I've named, you would not want the children to come up on those, any of those things, touch any of those things, grab any of those things, have anything to do with this. So it is, you know, cigarette butts, they're found all the time on the playground. And what do children do when they find them? Pick them up, put them in their mouth, right? So we really, really, really need to be vigilant about checking the playgrounds when we go out. I don't think we fully sometimes understand the importance of it until it's too late, till we've walked out and a child's picked up a used condom or what have you. And so, you know, it's really important. It really is. We need to be checking our playgrounds. 75 square feet per child is required. Again, if you're licensed, you've got that covered. We should be taking our children outside daily, as long as the wind chill factor is at or above -15, and I know that's really cold. But even if you only get your children out there for 5 minutes, it is so, so good for children to be outside, not just because of the fresh air, although that is very important to health. It is also about the movement. Movement and brain development go hand in hand together. And movement, appropriate amounts of movement also reduce behaviors in classrooms. And so it's really important for your children to get out. And we also need to make sure it's not above 90 degrees when we go out. We really should have drinking water available at all times, inside and outside. And best practice is not that we would ever limit their drinking water. If a child says they're thirsty, they really should be allowed to drink. I mean, as we've been sitting here, I can't tell you how many drinks I've taken, right? And nobody has said to me at any time, no, you can't have a drink. You got to wait until we're done, right? Like if I said, Rita, put that down. You can't have a drink right now. We're having class, right? You're not going to like that. That ain't right, right? But we do that to children. We do it to them all the time, don't we? And we're always like, well, they'll take advantage. They might for a day or two. But you know what? Once they realize you don't care, they don't care anymore either. That's just the way they are. And so we just need to be making sure that we stay well hydrated. It's so important for our children to stay hydrated, to be healthy. And then we, of course, if we're outside, we need to be sensitive to air quality in children that are diagnosed with asthma. So here's the weather watch thing. Y'all should have this in all of your centers. If you need a copy of one, I can send you one. Okay, so we also want to be thinking about when we're outside, watching our children for signs of overheating or being too cold. You can touch the children's hands if it's cold, and make sure they're warm and that they're retaining usual color. And here's another thing that I always have to say this because I've been a teacher for so long, and then I was a partnership specialist and now a training specialist. And I really didn't tell you about the training specialist piece. So for 4 years out of the 5, that also meant I was a coach, where I went into the classrooms and coached teachers. So I've observed a lot of teachers, and I did that not only for Head Start, but within the community as well. And so this is kind of a pet peeve thing for me that I just like to share. It's frustrating to me when we punish our children for what the parents don't do. So I have observed a classroom before where a child didn't bring a coat and it was cold. And the teacher said, well, they know we go outside. I guess they're going out without a coat. And it was very cold. And I put up with that for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then I said, no, I'm taking the child in. And I just took them in. But I mean, there's just never an excuse for not making sure that a child is safe and warm. I don't know what the solution is for your center, whether that's that child can stay in with someone else or that you have extra coats on hand, or I don't know what the solution is, but there's always a solution of some sort. And I don't believe in punishing the whole class for one child. Like, everyone shouldn't have to stay in because one child doesn't have a coat. Honest to goodness, if the problem is that you need extra coats, even then CAP oftentimes has free coats, and we actually even have a free room where if you make an appointment to come get some stuff, you can come down there and get some free coats to keep in your center. So if that's the problem, come get some free coats. So we should dress the children appropriately according to the weather. We need to help the children zip their coats if they can't do it. I am all for teaching children to do that, but if they just are incapable of doing it, we need to do that for them. This says that we should keep children 6 months of age out of the sun. They burn so easily when they're little like that. And we want to apply sunblock 30 minutes before going outside. Now, you need to know your program's policies about applying sunblock before you do that, just because of the liability of it. If a child should happen to be allergic to one of the sunblock that you put on, you kind of need to know that. So you really need to know your program's policies about that. Sorry, my son keeps calling and I keep shutting him off. Okay, and then, so this is the policy for Head Start that we go by. Sun safety, including sunscreen, caregivers/teachers should ensure sun safety for themselves and children under their supervision by keeping infants younger than 6 months out of direct sunlight, limiting sun exposure when ultraviolet rays are strongest, and applying sunscreen with written permission of parents and guardians. Manufacturer instructions should be involved. So that's ours. All right, so we're going to think about health records for a minute. Now, I know that most teachers are not the monitor of the health records, but even though you are not the one that monitors them, it really is important that you're aware of the fact that your children in your care do have health records, or they should, and these are the things that they should include. So there should be a record of their immunizations, well checks, and dental exams, as well as allergies and other health issues that they might have. So do any of you know where your health records are kept in your centers? I see some heads nodding. So do you have access to them if you needed them? Okay, I would hope that you would all know, and if you don't, that you would find out, because you just never know when you might need that information. So some things that should be included in their health record are phone numbers of parents and guardians and 2 emergency contacts. Excuse me, the name of the child's healthcare source with the address and phone number, so their doctor or physician or nurse practitioner. The child's medical exam and immunization record, results of all screenings and assessments. Notations about chronic illness, allergies, or other health concerns. Documentation should be given to give emergency permission for medical care. Permission slips for distribution of medicine if needed, if it's a child that requires medicine. Accident reports, medication logs, referrals, documentations of observations by the staff concerning the child's health. So all of those are things that should be kept in the child's file in their health record. Okay, so someone tell me, where's the health records kept in your center? Anybody?
We have a clipboard that comes with us. It comes outside with us, and it's in our classroom, and it has their enrollment form, and their enrollment packet includes their health record.
Oh, that's very good. Good. We're gonna cover a little bit of that, so that's great. A lot of them are kept in an office in a locked file cabinet. So probably at the end of the day, yours have to be locked up, I'm assuming, just so that if they're not on you, then they're being protected. So let me ask you this. How and when are you made aware of a child's health record? Let's say you have a child that has asthma. When are you made aware of that, and how?
Typically, it's when the child starts in our class, or like right before the child starts, then we kind of get the rundown of them right before the child comes in.
Good. I would hope so. Unfortunately, sometimes that stuff gets missed and you don't find out until it's kind of a problem. But yes, you should definitely be made aware of it when the child comes into your program. So has anyone ever had an incident where you should have had access to some kind of pertinent information, but you didn't? Has anyone ever experienced that? Well, good. I'm really glad to hear that, because that can be kind of scary. That really can be. So do you know who has access to these health records? Whether you know it or not, you all do. You all have the right to know, to look at the health records of the child in your classroom. And I would honestly advise you to do that, just in case for some reason something has been overlooked. And a lot of times they give you good information. A lot of times you'll find out things about, like, if a child was a preemie, which can totally affect their development. And so you can find out a lot of things by looking at a child's health record. And I don't think it's being nosy. I think it's having the best information you can to help that child develop in the most optimal way. So center managers, teachers should have access to it. And so they should be updated yearly or as needed. It depends, like if it's infants 0 to 3, those well checks are updated a lot more often. But at 3 to 5, like well checks are yearly. Immunizations are usually, I don't know anymore with immunizations, there's so many of them. So do you guys have some type of program requirement for supporting children with chronic health conditions? For instance, if you have like a child with asthma, is there like a special care plan put in place?
We have, it's again with their enrollment information, and then it's a form that their doctor fills out and faxes back to us, saying, like, we have one right now that has asthma and an inhaler. So it lists specifically when to administer, how to administer, and then the inhaler itself is kept locked, but his information and how to handle it and the health, I think it's called just a healthcare plan, is all in this clipboard that we carry with us everywhere.
Perfect. And that's actually what I was looking for, is that you would have something from the doctor, because it's a liability. So if a child has asthma and mom brings you in an inhaler and says, give them this many puffs, but that's really not what what the doctor says, guess what? And if you give them so many puffs and they have a reaction, it's on you, because you didn't have the appropriate paperwork that protects you. So that's something that is really important. And if your agency does not have something like that in place, I would be very leery about administering any type of medication. I think as the center director, you should do that because you don't want to put yourself in that position. So daily health checks. Does anyone know what a daily health check looks like? Sounds really formal, don't it?
We just like look at the kid, check for like bruises. Most of the time, at least like because it was summer, we were just writing down like bug bites. We just check to make sure they have bruises so that we know and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. So it is kind of just a once over thing. It's not really like an inspection. It's not really a checklist. So I do have a checklist on here I'm going to show you. But really, this is not something you would actually really use, or I wouldn't. It's just kind of a guideline. So like when a child comes in, if they're acting odd, they're not acting like their usual behavior. If this child comes in every day happy and they're excited to be there, and one day they're coming in and they're acting fearful or afraid, okay, that's going to be set off a little bit of an alarm in your head, right? So something's wrong, something's going on. If the child comes in and their face is flushed, or you can hear them breathing heavily through their mouth, or I don't know, seem really tired or whatever, those are just things you're going to notice about a child that you just kind of naturally pick up on as a teacher when they come in. And that's kind of what it is. You're just kind of giving a child once over, and you're asking the parent, how are they doing this morning? How was their morning? And they're kind of sometimes give you an update. And the thing is, if the parent says to you, well, they didn't sleep well last night, well, then you kind of got a heads up. Today might be a little rough for them, right? Or maybe they're starting to catch something, so you're going to keep an eye on them through the day and be there to support it. Okay, so we're going to talk for a few minutes about responding appropriately to illness. So here's some symptoms that require a child to be sent home. Fever above 100 if taken orally, diarrhea, vomiting, blood or mucus and stools, abdominal pain, mouth sore with drooling, rash with a fever or behavior change, suspicions of a communicable disease, strep throat, lice, chickenpox, etc., pink eye. I am really sorry. He's called me 3 times. I'm just going to text him that I'm busy. And maybe he'll stop calling. Okay, pink eye. So those are some things that you would just send a child home for. And so did you notice it says suspicions of a communicable disease? So like if you're just suspecting COVID, then they should be sent home. They should be. And then you would require a doctor's note for them to come back. Now, part of responding appropriately to illness or injury is responding with compassion. So I like to say, let's think about how we feel when we're sick. How many of you, when you get sick, you just want your mom? No matter how old you are, when you're sick, you want your mom, right? Last year, I had my 29-year-old son say he was really sick and he never gets sick. He said, I just wanted to talk to you, Mom. I just need to know, it don't matter how old you are. You just want your mama. And so when we think about our little babies that we take care of, whether they're 1 or they're 5, they just want the same thing, and sometimes they can't have their mama right away. And so we want to respond with compassion. We also want to respond discreetly. And this is something I've noticed over the years, that sometimes I think we just forget that our little ones are little people, and they really pick up on our facial expressions and the things that we say and we do. I remember being in classrooms where people said, they got lice, and their face looks like this, and they look disgusted, and they look gross out, and there's this little child, this little innocent child there that feels all this rejection now, and then they're like, you get over, and they just isolate them and just make them feel horrible. And I'm just like, why do we do that to babies? I mean, if someone did that to me at the age of 50, I would feel horrible. But we do that to these babies, or they've thrown up or whatever they've done. And we don't respond like we should oftentimes. We need to be really aware of what our face is saying as well as our mouth. And so, you know, if they need to be moved away from the rest of the class, okay, but let's do it easily and kindly and nicely and carefully. And we don't want to talk about it in front of the child or other, you know, likely, here's the truth. If you're not feeling good, you are maybe a little bit like, sometimes when you're not feeling good, you can feel a little bit fearful. Okay, let's just use nowadays with COVID. When people start getting sick with stuff, what are people immediately thinking? I wonder if it's COVID. And there's a lot of fear that comes with that, right? There just is. Well, when a little child is feeling sick, sometimes they can feel fearful. You know, they're not feeling their best. They're not sure why they feel as yucky as they feel. And so we just want to be really careful with them that we don't give them reason to feel fearful. Again, separate them as gently as possible. We want to be a comfort to them. I really hope that we don't ever let our fear of getting lice or something keep us from hugging a child. Listen, I caught lice 3 times being a teacher. I got rid of it every time. Was it fun? No, it was not. But I would rather discreetly get rid of lice and make the child feel loved than make that child feel rejected and save myself some trouble. You know, that's just not worth it. And then we also need to have emergency contacts available. We want to have current numbers nearby, as well as the child's medical provider's number in case of emergency. So administering medicine, this can be a really touchy thing. Don't worry about that, reading it in your book. But all medicine needs to be distributed. All medicine that needs to be distributed must be brought to the school in its original bottle or packaging. And the reason why is to ensure it belongs to the child and they're administered the proper dosage. And so it should include the first and last name of the child, the name and phone number of the health professional who prescribed the medication, the date the prescription was filled, the expiration date, specific instructions for administering, storing, and disposing of medication. And so here's what I want you to do for a minute. I'm going to break you up for just a minute. Oops. And I want you to talk about what your guys' procedures are and how you deal with that in your center, okay? So we're going to take just a minute to do this. It's going to just automatically assign you. I'm going to put you into 2-3 rooms, and we're going to go in there for about 3 minutes, okay? All right, here we go. I'm teaching class, so make this quick. Honey, what do you want me to do? Well, I mean, for some people it is. I mean, Tanner, I don't know, honey, because it could just be something else. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, where it would be bad that you would need to worry is if you start breathing, like can't breathe right. Like if you start being very, very short of breath. So, yeah, like if that's what you're worried about. I mean, the other stuff well, it does come on pretty quick. It really does, I will say. But again, the flu can come on really quick. So, honey, I don't know what you have. So I don't know. I would, if you're fine enough to go to bed, I would go to bed and rest. Because here's the thing, you've already exposed your kids. Well, honey, so drink a lot of liquid. Do you guys still have vitamin C there? Okay, take some vitamin C. You know, you can take like 2,000 milligrams of it. It's not gonna hurt anything. You can even take more than that if you want to. Truth of the matter is you can take up to 10,000, but you know, he's not going to be mad at you if you got it. If you're sick, you're sick. But I mean, just go ahead and rest is what I do. Make sure you drink a lot of fluid. And I mean, the only way you'd really need to get worried is if, like I said, if you got super short of breath, which I don't expect that to happen. I experienced a little shortness of breath, but nothing ever scary. And you'll know if it's like well, and I realize that, Tanner, but here's the truth. I wouldn't worry about that unless they start experiencing symptoms. Oh, do you need to get tested? Well, that's why I said wait and see how you feel tomorrow. All right? All right, hon, love you. I wouldn't kiss on the babies while you're feeling like this. Bye. Okay, so anybody want to share? I mean, were all your protocols pretty much the same, or was anything different?
My group is pretty much the same, like the same procedures, you know, kind of use your judgment, but also, you know, if there's a temperature, obviously they're going to go home and, you know, kind of just basically the same.
So what is your guys' procedure if, let's say that a child comes in with medication and the appropriate bottle for them, and it says administer twice a day? What do you guys do?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. If you
Help
don't
with
know,
that.
it's okay.
I've been at
You know
UCP
that
a little
one?
longer. I can help with that.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Colin.
Our program is a half-day program. It's 3 hours. So anything that's twice a day, we ask that the parent administer. We don't need to. We have them for 3 hours. Anything that's the morning, they can always get before they come to school. And then when they get home as well. Same thing with the 3 times. We would send them home. They don't eat lunch with us. So we would send them home and the parent would administer that as well. We typically
Okay.
only deal with emergency medications, like for
Right.
CPs or an inhaler or something like that.
And that's very wise, again, because it goes back to liability. But if you are a full day center, you might have to do if it's 3 days, if it's 3 times a day, you would probably have to administer the middle of the day medication. But you want to administer as little medication as possible. If any way at all, you want it to be done at home by the parent. So yes, very good answers. Okay. Okay, children with special needs. So of course our settings need to be adapted to allow children with special needs to actively participate within the setting. As best we can, we're going to do that in every situation. We're going to make large enough pathways. We're going to limit the amount of stairs if possible. We're going to just do everything we can to adapt it for children with special needs, depending on their needs. And so children with disabilities often have an IFSP, which is an individualized family service plan. And so this is for children that are under 3 years old. You would see the IFSP. If they are 3 years old or older, you would see an IEP, and that's an individual education plan for the child. And so these are children who have been diagnosed with some sort of disability or some sort of developmental delay. If you suspect the child does have a disability or delay, if they are 0 to 3, you can contact First Steps. That's your contact, Missouri First Steps. The nice thing about if they're under 3 is you can actually make the referral. Now, I would advise you to never make a referral without the parent's permission. You always need to talk to the parent and make sure they're fine with it. But like I said, the nice thing is you can actually make that referral, because sometimes parents are fearful about doing that, or just kind of, well, because of fear, sometimes they'll put it off, whereas the teacher, you might get right on that and get that child help quicker. Because there is a lot of fear with that with parents, and I don't want us to judge them with that, but it's sometimes hard for them to take that step. But if they're over 3, you cannot make the referral. The parent has to do that. And in St. Joe, that's done through the Keatley Center. And so they do a screening there. Now, through the Missouri First Step 0 to 3, that can be done over the phone or that can be done online. As far as the Keatley Center, you can set up your screening online too, or over the phone. Okay, nutritious meals and snacks. We want to make sure we're planning appropriate meals and snacks. Now, I know that you all don't plan those probably for your center. So who planned your meals for you?
Our director.
Your director plans them, okay. And then do you guys have a full-time cook on staff?
No,
No.
we just have a snack.
Okay, oh yes, because you only go 3 hours a day. Yes, okay,
Yeah.
very good. All right, so Savannah, out of InterServe, do you know who plans the meals?
Well, InterServe, we get them from like the community center in the south. Then our cook brings it all to us, and then she passes it out to the classroom.
Okay, all right, and then Abby, do you know who does it at La Petite?
Yeah, her name's Deborah.
Okay, and she's your full-time cook.
Yeah.
So at Mega, do you guys provide meals?
We have a snack because we're there for 2.5 hours. But we, the parents are in charge of bringing that in each week. Like I teach 2 classes a week, where we teach a Tuesday, Thursday class and a Wednesday, Friday class. So a parent of a student is in charge of bringing that for Tuesday, Thursday, and then Wednesday, Friday, so they get a full week. So they have to bring it for 2 days. And we give them a list of like suggestions on like what to bring and that kind of stuff. So they provide it. Mm-hmm. Now we do run into some issues sometimes where they bring a snack that isn't quite appropriate. So we do have to kind of talk to them about that sometimes, about like, hey, we're trying to keep it, we don't want a lot of candy, sugar, that kind of stuff. That's not the snack that we're looking for. We're looking for, a cheese stick and some fruit or something like that. So, but they provide it and then we give it to them.
Okay, very good. All right. So if you're licensed, you have to follow the CACFP guidelines. It's nice to share menu information with parents. Really, it really is nice when my grandson went to childcare, it was really nice for me to know when I was dropping off, what he was going to have that day, and it even makes for good conversations. So not only was I making sure that he was getting healthy snacks, it was something I could talk with him about later in the day, what did you have? And I knew what he had, so if he couldn't remember. But also we want to make sure that we're respecting every family's practices, values, and their culture. And we're eating, and one of these things, so like in Head Start, we do family dining, because children just don't get that nowadays. Most children, they eat in front of the TV or what have you, and we need to realize that when children come in, if we are teaching family dining, most of them are not used to that anymore. They're not maybe sure how to use the different types of silverware, to be patient with them and teaching that. And we want to teach healthy attitudes about food and eating. So immediately I'm thinking of Abby, because that's really hard when you're picky, isn't it? It's really hard to teach children to have healthy attitudes. But there's ways around that. So, depending on where you work, I don't know what the rules are with everyone. With Head Start, our rules are that you would try everything. But, I understand for some teachers that's really difficult and really hard. And sometimes that's a texture thing. And sometimes that's a traumatic thing from your childhood and different things. So there's ways to pretend, I think the important thing is that we're not saying, ooh, I hate this. Ooh, I hate that in front of the children. And that we're just, our faces saying what it should say, whether we're actually.
Like I always just put it on my plate and go like, yummy. And then I'd be like, okay, you could try yours. And most of the time it's stuff they like anyway, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So it's just that we're modeling the best that we can. We don't want mealtime to be a stressful time and to be a traumatic time. And it really can turn into be a very stressful time for children. you know, depending on the expectations of the families and the teachers, I think back to when my kids were little, and I was raised where you ate what was fixed for you and you didn't complain about it, and you ate it whether you liked it or not, right? And you were thankful. So when I began to raise my voice, I parented the way I parented. And I had very good parents. I'm not speaking poorly of them. That was just the culture of that day and what we did. But my youngest son, for years, he was very picky. And he really hated corn. And I remember making him eat corn several times until the poor kid finally threw up. And I was like, I'm not making him do this again. And come to find out, so I didn't find this out until he was about 10, but he had a geographical tongue. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen a geographical tongue. Well, it looks like, what it looked like to me was like acid had ate different parts of his tongue out. It really looks like a map. It really does. And I always thought, what is wrong with his tongue? You know, and the doctors always was like, he's fine, and no one ever said anything. Finally, when he's 10, we go to this dentist, and the dentist says he has a geographical tongue. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, he's probably more sensitive to textures and things. And so all this time, I've been making my child eat things that he really, really had a hard time eating. It was very real to him. Textures were very difficult to him. And to this day, and like I say, it's going to be 30, there's some things that he just cannot get past the texture. And, you know, and then some kids, you know, are raised where, you know, you don't waste or you're in trouble. You'll sit at the table for hours, you know, whatever. That's just very traumatic. And so we always want mealtime to be a good experience for the children, and we want to teach them healthy attitudes. And of course, so like I said, model good eating habits. Talk about the nutrition and how the food affects the body. Talk about how it's good for them. And never use food as a reward or punishment. This is where that trauma can come in with people. You know, we have a lot of adults my age that are overweight because they were raised in that generation that you don't waste food. You don't leave it on your plate, and they would make themselves eat until they were stuffed, not just full, but stuffed. And then that's created, you know, some issues with their weight as they've gotten older, you know, and so it can just cause a lot of problems. We just want to make sure it's as pleasant as possible. There should be places provided for breastfeeding within every facility if you're providing care to infants. We also want to allow children to be as independent as possible when they in serving and feeding themselves. Maybe not so much in serving themselves now with COVID, but definitely in feeding themselves. The best practice is encourage family style meals. Encourage conversation. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was in school during lunch, we were not allowed to talk with our friends. And I'm like, that's the craziest thing I can think of now. When I think back about that, I thought, how crazy is it that they did not want us to talk to the people sitting next to us? I mean, that's such a healthy thing to do socially for so many reasons. I guess probably there was a limited amount of time to eat and they wanted to make sure you got your food ate, but it really didn't make any difference. I got the same amount of food ate whether I talked or not. But it's really a great time to promote social skills during eating, to talk. So we should be providing enough time to eat that there's conversation happening. So you know what? It's already 8:10. So I'm not going to have you view this video on hand washing. I think that we all probably should know how to wash our hands by now. But I do think it's important that we are teaching our children that after they wash their hands, they dry their hands with a paper towel before they turn off the water, and they use the paper towel to turn off the water. If we're not teaching our children to do that, then they've just completely wasted their time in washing their hands, because every germ that they had on their hand before, when they turned the water on, they just got right back on their hands. So I think it's really important that we are making sure that that step is added. So our procedures should be posted. And so we know when we wash our hands, right? Before eating, after using the bathroom, after going outside, after sneezing or coughing, and after wiping our nose. We should be having the parent bring a change of clothes for the child to keep at the center. We need to teach children good practices, how to cover their mouth when coughing or sneezing, which I have not followed this all night long, but nobody's around me. But really, you shouldn't be coughing in your hand like I just did, because I'm going to touch things, right? And for a long time, they taught that you should cough in your arm, which is still not a horrible practice, but really the best practice they're saying now is to cough into your shirt. Contains it better. Teach how to use a Kleenex. And, you know, I think it's so important that we keep the children's faces clean. I know that can be an ongoing all-day process sometimes, especially in the winter, but that spreads so many germs. And I just say to teachers, if you walk into the childcare and your child's face is covered with dried snot, how do you feel? Do you feel they were well taken care of? Because I don't. And so I think that that's really important that we try to really stay on top of that. Not just for sanitary reasons, but just for care in general. Dental care, if y'all aren't doing that, well, then let's not worry about it too much. We just want to make sure we teach it when it's appropriate and how to do it safely, and that we don't use fluoride toothpaste for children under 3. I would hope that all of you are very, very good at diapering at this point. So I'm not going to show you this video because it's actually a 10-minute video and we are running down shorter in time. I want to make sure we get to the mandated reporting piece. That's just kind of talking about some of it. I do want to mention about toileting. So there's not a set time for potty training, and every child is different. It truly is a major developmental milestone, and it really is related to their brain development and if their brain is ready. So some children will potty train at the age of 2, and some will not until they're 4 or 5. And it's not an intelligence. It's just where they're at developmentally. Some children, their motor skills develop faster. Some children, their literacy develop faster. Some children, you know, just depends what's developing in their body and where they're at. And so you want to work with the parents on the best methods for their child. We never want to shame, tease, or punish a child when they are learning to toilet. I believe that that's also very damaging to our children. You know, and I think sometimes we don't mean to be. I think we're just tired, right? You probably change 100 diapers a day, depending on the age group you work with, or you take children to the bathroom 100 times a day, and sometimes you just are tired. And so then a child has an accident, and you're like, oh, you pooped your pants again. You know, it just sometimes comes out even before we mean to, but we need to try to not to do that because that's so shaming to a child. And you know, do you ever go to a restaurant and knock over a glass of water? You did not intentionally do that, right? You did not mean to do that, and it's embarrassing. And so if the person you're with is like, really? That's the way we make the children feel when we do that to them. You know, so we just need to be aware that they're just little miniature us's and they feel the same way that we do about things. Nap time. So each child should have their own crib or cot, and they're supposed to be kept 3 feet apart. You know, children should be prepared for nap. How many of you have a nighttime routine that you either do for yourself or that you do for your children? I have no children left at home, but I have a nighttime routine that I really like. And if I don't get it, something just doesn't feel right, okay? And so it's really so much easier for our children to sleep if they have a routine of some sort. Do you know, sometimes it's really actually scary for children to nap. For whatever reason, whether they just have fears of nap or whether they've had bad experiences at nighttime or bedtime. We don't know. But for some children, it's very scary. And so anything we can do to make it less scary is going to be a help to them. If we can give them a routine so they know what's coming next, that's going to help them so much with that. Whether we sing them a song or do a rhyme or tell them a story, it really should be pleasant. It shouldn't be everyone get on your cots, lay down, get your blanket, be quiet. I mean, even if I think about that, going to bed like that right now, like if my husband said, get in bed, it's time to go to bed. Stop, I don't want to talk to you right now. It's time to sleep. Be quiet. That sounds crazy, right? But we do that to kids. We do it all the time. And why? Just because they're kids. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have rules and we shouldn't have expectations, but I can accomplish the same thing by reading a story to a child and saying, okay, it's time to listen to the story. And then I'll come around and I'll tuck you in as I can by get on your cot, lay down and be quiet. And I can accomplish it a whole lot better if I'm kinder and more pleasant. Of course, infants nap is needed. Now, this is a licensing rule. Children can only be kept on their cots for 20 to 30 minutes if they're choosing not to sleep. You can only make them, by licensing requirements, stay on their cot 20 to 30 minutes. Now, if you provide them quiet activities and they willingly stay on their cot, that's fine. But you are not supposed to force them to stay on their cot longer than 30 minutes if they're choosing not to sleep. Another thing we really want to do is encourage exercise. I really wanted to have you guys do this video tonight. It's really fun, but we're not because we only have such limited time. You should go outside as often as possible. We should provide structured and unstructured play. We're not going to do this breakout again because of time. We should be participating in activities with the children, set a good example. Okay, so now the last part that we're going to talk about tonight is identifying and reporting child abuse and neglect. So every one of us as child care providers are mandated reporters. With that being the case, it's important for us to learn the signs and to know how to report suspicions in accordance with our state laws. We are to be an advocate for children, and our program should have clear policies that we have shared with the parents. You're not going to worry about the Head Start policy. So there's physical abuse. So this is any non-accidental physical injury, not limited to, but including burning, beating, biting, kicking, hitting, or punching a child. There's also sexual abuse. So this is any sexual behavior with a child and includes commercial exploitation through pornography. Even showing pornography to a child is considered sexual abuse. Then we have neglect, and this is omissions of care that result in harm to the child. So there are 7 types of neglect. There's physical, which means this is failure to meet the child's basic nutritional, clothing, or hygiene needs. There's medical, which is failure to meet the child's medical and dental needs when resources are available. Inadequate supervision, so exposing children to hazards or leaving children in the care of someone who does not or cannot appropriately care for them, leaving them unattended. Environmental neglect, so exposing children to unsanitary or hazardous living conditions. I've seen some pretty crazy conditions because we've always done home visits, and I've heard some even crazier ones. So you'd be surprised what some of these kids live with out there. Emotional neglect, failure to meet children's needs for affection and attention. Educational neglect, failure to meet children's need for education and schooling. And then newborn addiction, exposure to drugs, exposing unborn children to drugs, causing them to be born with addiction or side effects of drugs. Okay. So signs of physical abuse can be things like extensive and frequent bruising, burns, bite marks, bald spots, dental injuries. Some signs of sexual abuse can be pain when walking, running or sitting, problems with urination, pain, itching, or discharge in the genital area. Some signs of psychological maltreatment could be eating problems. Like when I talked really about us making eating time pleasant, we need to be aware of when children have real issues with eating. Sleeping problems, again, that nap time, sometimes that can be something we need to keep an eye on about why children are responding the way they do. Sometimes that's just normal, typical behavior, but it's something to be aware of. Bedwetting, self-abusive behaviors such as headbanging and hair pulling. Signs of neglect, height and weight significantly below normal expectations, poor hygiene, wearing inappropriate clothing for the weather, fatigue, and sleepiness. So, reporting abuse. You all are mandated reporters because of your positions. Suspicion is all you ever need to file a report. So it is not up to you to act on it. That's up to the agency. It's up to them to act on it and how. And you should never, never, never let fear keep you from reporting or what others think. Here's the number for child abuse and neglect in Missouri. You should have it in all of your centers. So if you ever suspect child abuse and neglect, that's all you need to make a report is suspicion. It is confidential. They are not to let the guardian or parent know who made the report. Although I will tell you this, most likely they'll figure it out. And that's where you have to decide that what happens to the child is more important than what the repercussions may be. It's hard sometimes to make a report because you don't know how the parent's going to react or what's going to happen. But here's the thing. If there's something to be founded on, it needs to be reported. And if there's not, they're not going to act on it. So if there's not a reason for it to be worry, they're not going to act on it. But if there is a reason, then you did the right thing and they're going to do their best to help that child. And you're going to know that you did all that you could to help that child. And it is your job and your duty to do what's best for that child. So I'm going to share with you one time. So I've made a few calls over the years, but this one I'll never forget. So the little boy came in, he was 4, and he had a belt mark on his head, very clearly the mark of a belt buckle. His mom was at this time, so this was, let's say, 15 years ago. And at that time, she was very much out of the norm. She dressed very, what they would call gothic today. I think they call it, unless they've changed the name. I might be able to loop with that. She was very different from the average parent at that time. And not only did she dress and look different, she just acted different. So I'm not speaking about what she did in a judgmental way. I'm just saying that it was not the norm in those days. And I felt like there was a few warning signs with her that her mental health wasn't extremely well at that time. And so when he came in that day, and of course I said, what happened? So my job is not to investigate, but it's perfectly appropriate to say what happened to your head. That's okay. Now my job is not to say, who did that to you? What was going on? How'd that happen? Blah, blah, blah. But my job is to say what happened and let him tell what he tells me and then to act upon what's told upon to me. So he did say that he was in trouble and mom hit him with a belt. So that was enough for me to make a report. So I made a report. And it was private and mom was not told that I did it, but she figured it out. So she came in the next day and she could be a fairly intimidating woman, but she came into me and she said, why did you hotline me? And so you have a choice at that point. You can lie, and I'm not judging you if you do, okay? I am not judging you, but at this point I was just like, because your son told me you hit him with a belt on the head, and that is not good for him, and that tells me that you're having some difficulties that you might need help with. And I was very kind to her, even though it was very angering to know that she let herself get that where she could hurt him. But I also realized that she was not in a good place. And so I was very kind to her and told her that. And honest to goodness, it was honestly the best thing I could have ever done, because after that, we actually developed a relationship and she actually got help. She got to keep her son and things got better. Now, does it always end like that? No. I had a boy one time that we suspected sexual abuse, and stepdad came in, and thank the Lord we actually had this man working for us at the time that he kept him at bay and away from his teachers. So it's not always going to be pretty. But, you have to think about the children and who's going to protect them if we don't sometimes. So, okay, it's 8:25. And that's the end of healthy environment. I am going to post this video, if I can figure out how, because I've not ever done this before, recorded a Zoom and then post it. I'm going to post it in an Edmodo if for any reason you need to refer back to it for some reason. If you have coworkers that didn't make it tonight, I'm going to let them know through Edmodo they need to view this, but you can let them know. It's going to be posted. They can view it if you have some that didn't get to make it and view it. Again, I would encourage you to get a hold of Kayla and get your books, set up a time to do that, whether you do that now or in a couple weeks or whatever is fine with me. Anybody have any questions about tonight? Okay. All right, ladies, so it's good to meet you, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, okay? All right, have a good night.